the most profound spiritual principles of which one could think. That I think that the conjunction of these two, or if you like the contrast, between the tremendous nobility and challenge of these ideas and concepts and the matter-of-fact tone, virtually scientific tone, in which Patanjali couches his language, I think it's this particular combination that gives the sutras a sense of power, because one senses immediately that Patanjali is recording something that for him and those who taught him has been deeply felt and experienced, that it comes from certitude, from inner conviction, and from experiential realization. Therefore, he is, as it were, if one can mix such modes, a mystic who records very carefully and in great detail the steps leading to the mystical union in scientific terminology, or virtually as closely as you can get in the metaphysical field to scientific language. It's as if he gives one a group of chemical formulae or a roadmap, and there is nothing deliberately exhortatory or inspirational in them. He doesn't say do this. He simply says if you want to arrive at a certain place, at a certain state of being, then this is the way in which to do it. Here are the difficulties. Here are the ways through which the difficulties can be overcome, and so on. And I think it's precisely this restraint on his part, this sobriety of language, that makes for a sense of power in these sutras. So now let's get to having introduced who Patanjali is and where I think one can best study him. I'd like to get to the subject of yoga at once. Yoga means several things, and in essence one can reduce the many connotations of that word to four, it seems to me. First and foremost, yoga means union. Second, and I'll come back to that. Secondly, it means to yoke. Yug, Y-U-G is the root, to yoke. And the implicit meaning of that, to yoke oneself to something via self-discipline, to a goal, to an aim. Thirdly, and this is not from Patanjali at all, this is from another Indian work, the Bhagavad Gita. In the Bhagavad Gita, which also deals with yoga, it's later than Patanjali, yoga is defined as the breaking of the contact with pain. It doesn't say that there won't be pain in one's life, but it does say that one learns through yoga to blunt it, to cope with it, to break the point of contact with pain. And lastly, the definition that will interest us most this afternoon comes straight from Patanjali. It comes from his very second sutra in part 1. Yoga is the inhibition of the modifications of the mind. That's a much more difficult and much more technical meaning, and I hope to clarify as much as time permits the specifics of that this afternoon. Now let's go back a moment, and this involves us inevitably in the Sankhya metaphysics on which yoga as a method rests. If somebody says yoga means union, then the obvious question is, union of what? Union with what? Union, why union? And that involves one quite inevitably in the notion that whatever must be united is perceived to be separate. Otherwise, the aim of uniting it would be quite irrelevant and inappropriate. And indeed, this is what we find. I have, by the way, Narka, this wonderful artist here at Olcott, has been kind enough to make me some charts. So in order to simplify or organize some of the sutras for you, but I don't know whether, frankly, everybody will be able to see them. But in any case, I will go over it with you. So union of what with what? What is separated and what has to be reunited? And so Patanjali rests on the Sankhya metaphysics, which essentially maps out the universe in the following way. There are two fundamental, irreducible, eternal, which means uncreated, not subject to time, basic constituents or realities in the universe in Sankhya Yoga metaphysics. And one is called spirit, Purusha, and the other is called matter, Prakriti. For some reason or other, and the reasons are the hypotheses that are offered, we'll get into in a moment, these two forces or these two ultimates become identified with one another. Sometimes the word that's used is they become entangled with one another. And so instead of having them entirely separate, as you might have if you picture this in the eternal slumbering of the universe when it's resting, when nothing is manifest, when it's in a period of pralaya, Theosophists would say. Instead of that, you have for some reason an association of spirit with matter. Now I say for some reason because some commentators on Patanjali feel that we can never be completely certain of the reason. It would be asking the same question that one asks in asking why is there anything rather than nothing at all? Why Leibniz's question, why is there creation? So on one level, surely the finite human intellect cannot address that question because it will be a fruitless kind of question. But on another level, and Taimni suggests this, and it's certainly quite theosophical, the reason, if one can attribute motivation to the cosmos for the entanglement of Purusha and Prakriti, of spirit and matter, is so that each of them, in that association and working out the laws and the events that might have to do with the association, will become fully clear about who or what it is. That kind of evolutionary theory of the alliance of spirit and matter. And for the time being, I think we can take that as a given, because whether it's so on the cosmic level or not, it surely, for Patanjali, is undeniably so for man himself, the microcosm. And so, to set it for you once more, a little bit technically, Purusha, or spirit, Patanjali says, has certain characteristics. It is, as I said earlier, eternal. It is self-same. It is ultimate stillness or peace. It doesn't evolve. It doesn't need to evolve in as much as it is already perfect, and therefore there is no lack perceived in it. It's very, in Patanjali, over and over, the metaphor of light, shining light. That shouldn't read height, it should read light. Shining light, splendor, brilliance, effulgence. That metaphor is attributed over and over to the aspect of spirit or Purusha. And it is, of course, since it doesn't evolve, it's immobile. It's not restless or undergoing change. Unlike matter, or what Patanjali calls matter, we today would classify all of this as energy and would simply call matter what is very dense energy and perhaps, energy with a very slow vibratory rate we would call matter. But at any rate, we'll use his word, he says matter. And this is in constant motion, in constant change. It's characterized for Sankhya Yoga by three major factors or features. In Hindu philosophy, they're called the three gunas or strands, because like the strands of a rope